watching Senior Support on your TV, and my name's Debbie MacDonald Moynes. I'm your host. Our guest today is Aaron Miller, who's with the Prince Edward Detachment of the OPP, and we're talking about fraud. And Aaron, I just wonder, just to put this in context, can you tell us approximately how many or how much money Canadians lose to fraud each year?
The numbers are truly staggering. According to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, so far in 2020, Canadians have reported losing just over $22.5 million. And if you recall, the Anti-Fraud Centre suspects that only approximately 5% of frauds are actually reported. So you can just imagine what we're losing each year.
Well, that's why this kind of education is so important, so that we can hopefully prevent more victims of fraud and help people know and be on alert for this kind of thing. Now, in the first half, Aaron, we didn't talk about the CRA fraud, and I know that there's been some work done to put a stop to it, but in fact, it does still continue.
This is one of the more common ones. We get a lot of questions about these. It sort of comes and goes. It goes in waves. CRA will never request gift cards for payment. They'll never request Bitcoin. The best piece of advice is if somebody from Canada Revenue calls you and you're questioning whether or not you owe back tax, always reach out to them yourself. As we said, if we're the ones originating the inquiry, we're a little bit more comfortable. We see a lot of these fraudsters are able to spoof phone numbers as well. So for a period of time, they were able to spoof their phone number, route it through what appeared to be an OPP number. So if you received a fraudulent call from these folks, the number was actually showing up as OPP. So this is problematic when the fraudster then says, you owe $3,000 in back taxes, there's going to be an arrest warrant issued for you. Don't come to the police station because you'll be arrested. Send this money in Bitcoin. So as you can imagine, if we're not familiar with these frauds or scams, it would be quite easy to fall into this because we think the police are actually phoning, where in reality, they're just spoofing numbers and routing through a third party.
I know people who've received the call ostensibly from Canada Revenue Agency. It wasn't from them, obviously, but they received a call and told the senior, who in the one case I'm thinking of, the person was over 90, told them that they owed money to CRA and that they were going to be arrested and they needed to send the money right away. That person was so frightened. They didn't owe any money to CRA. And in fact, they knew they didn't owe money to CRA, but it felt in the moment like they did. And it was so frightening for the person.
It is incredibly frightening, and the fraudsters are aware of that. And that's why this is one of their favorites, because it touches people and it affects people. If you can believe it, we at the office were even receiving calls on our work phones threatening to arrest us. So you can imagine our surprise when we received the calls too.
The fraudsters must have been a bit mixed up when they were calling police officers to tell them they were going to be arrested.
The conversation certainly didn't last very long.
In a way, that's kind of funny. They made a mistake calling the wrong people, but most of the time when I hear about it, they haven't called the wrong people. They've called regular, everyday, law-abiding citizens who get really frightened and they don't want to owe money to the government, and so they fall victim to this and send in their money and become part of that horrifically high statistic of the money that's lost.
You're absolutely right. Again, a couple of the red flags are oftentimes they ask for either gift cards or Bitcoin. Canada Revenue Agency will never ask for either of those. Canada Revenue Agency does have a fantastic online portal where you can log in once you're registered for MyCRA, and you can check anything and you can correspond with Canada Revenue through a secure online platform, or you can always reach out to them and ask them yourself if you're ever unsure. Canada Revenue, one of the other red flags in these scans is there's usually a time constraint on it. So they'll often say, don't go to your local police because you'll be arrested if you go there. You have to go straight to purchase these gift cards, and then here's where you send them. Again, those are significant red flags. And if there's ever any question as to whether or not you owe taxes, pump the brakes again and ask yourself, who can I reach out to? Who can I ask about this if you're ever unsure?
That online portal is a great idea, Aaron, for people to sign up for that. And if a person doesn't have a computer at home, under normal times, they could go to the library and people would even help them get that set up. But if you do have a computer at home, you could have a conversation with CRA once you've logged in as yourself. It's secure and it's okay to do that, and that would be a really good way. Then people could confirm that in fact they don't actually owe any money.
Absolutely, and it's a good thing to do that primarily from your home. We always recommend never doing these on a public network. So don't log on to any secure site, whether it's online banking or any online subscription, over an unsecure wireless network. So if you're at the free wireless network at whether it's the library or a coffee shop, you never know who else is watching on those virtual networks. So don't do any online purchasing, online transactions. Do this on a secure home computer on your home secure network, and then you're confident that you're the only person with access to this information.
Now that's a very good point, and you're making a very good point. Libraries do have computers. Best not to use it for that kind of thing. Yeah, I think I agree with you there. Thanks for pointing that out. So is there anything else we need to make sure that our viewers know about this kind of fraud that's happening, and that they need to be on the alert for?
These fraudsters, as we've explained, are quite clever and innovative. They're always changing their ways. There are a number of red flags, as we've said. So anytime somebody asks for gift cards or Bitcoin, we have to be incredibly cautious. There's a number of resources and tools, such as the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre's website. There's also a little black book of scams, which you'll often find in the main entrance or the waiting room of the large financial institutions. It's quite lengthy, but it's an actual paper copy for those of us that are more comfortable reviewing these things in paper copies. And we also have them at many of our OPP detachments. So if it's not something where we have access to internet or we're comfortable researching these scams, either stop by a branch or stop by one of our detachments, and we'll certainly direct you to the right resource. The other thing to remember, it's incredibly important that we report these frauds and scams. So if there's ever a financial loss, you should certainly make a notification to your local police department, police detachment, if it's OPP. And if there's no financial loss, we recommend a report to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. So they have an online reporting portal that you enter all the information online, or you can call them as well. And we recommend people do that because the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre is a national government organization. They're able to track national fraud. So if we get a phone call from somebody here, chances are other people in the province or country are receiving the same fraud. So they're able to track it nationally, and sometimes they can follow through on these investigations, and at the end of the day, make notifications to the telecommunications organizations who want to be aware of these calls originating from their service.
So we'll put the number of the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre up so that people can call. I think you're making an excellent point there, Aaron, that they can help other people by making a report on what happened to them. because then I would assume the Anti-Fraud Center is on the lookout for new frauds and new scams that are coming out, so that they can alert people like you and in police departments and detachments across the country, so that you can let people know they should be watching for these new things, because they're coming up with new things all the time.
You're absolutely right. They're clever and creative and innovative, and it's all about the discussions. Oftentimes, as we've discussed, somebody victimized by fraud feels ashamed or feels embarrassed. So it's important to have these discussions with our family members and loved ones, and ask if we have a trusted family member that's familiar with finances or familiar with banking. Ask them what the most current frauds are. Have you heard of any scams that I should be aware of? I'm sure I'm speaking for many relatives in that I'd rather have a relative reach out to me and ask a question about any type of ongoing scam than have to help them after the fact, try and track down their money through the system.
And they can learn a lot either on the website of the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center or by phoning the phone number, and find out all kinds of useful information about other types of frauds. Will they send the little black book you were talking about? Is that available by mail? Because right now a lot of seniors aren't going out and about.
I'm not sure. That would be certainly a question for the Anti-Fraud Center. I do know they have publications. I'm not sure if they distribute them, but I'm sure that they would be willing to go the extra mile to help spread the awareness and education piece.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming and talking to us today, Aaron, about the frauds and scams that affect seniors. And in fact, anybody of any age can fall victim to this. So pleased you were able to come and be on our show today and bring this message of caution to people in our viewing area. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for allowing us to spread the message. Again, it's all about the conversations and awareness. So thanks for having me.
You're watching Senior Support on your TV. Our topic today has been frauds and scams, and our guest has been Constable Aaron Miller with the Prince Edward Detachment of the OPC.